Hello, Dallas. It's time to wake up and get wealthy. I'm Terry Aarons, the Wellness Director with the Aaron Family JCC. And today we are going to dig a little deeper and close the year down with gratitude and learn how to practice mindfulness in 2024. Today, our guest is Debbi K. Levy, and she is just an amazing besides person. She's also an amazing expert when it comes to gratitude and mindfulness. She's done a lot of studies, and she's also one of my favorite returning guests.
Oh,
so
thank you, Terry.
Thank you so
my
much.
My friend, my boss, my mentor.
Thanks for coming on the
you
segment
can probably
today.
see this electricity the two of us have. It's not a secret.
Yeah, it's not fake. All right, so Debbi, I know that mindfulness, gratitude, I just want to unpack what gratitude is, what mindfulness is, and how they reflect. Do they intersect or they don't intersect? So anyways, if you could just kind of give us a little bit of information on, you hear so much about being grateful,
Right.
Finding gratitude.
Right.
Can you explain?
I would love to, because I think people are hard on themselves when others walk around with words that are trending, mindfulness, or being mindful, and gratitude as interchangeable. And that's, to me anyway, in my definitions, that doesn't really work, because we're human beings. We have a myriad of emotions, and so we have to be who we are. First is mindfulness. What is mindfulness? It's really noticing. When you're planning your day, what's for dinner, that's you living a bit in the future. We have to do that. We're planners. When you think about what happened when you were a kid, or last Hanukkah, or last holiday season, Christmas, that's you in the back. That's you in the history. But when we're right here, right now, the way you audience and we are, and we're noticing what's happening, and we're deeply listening to the conversation, we're actually living in the present moment. And whatever we're noticing, whether you say, I can't hear her voice, or I don't like the top she's wearing, or whatever it is, that's real. Those are the things that you're actually noticing. That's being mindful.
So that's being in the moment.
That's being in the moment. It doesn't always mean that what is in front of you and what is right here in the present moment is happy. And I think that's where people get a little mixed up, like, every moment that I'm mindful should be a good one.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thanks for bringing that to our attention. When I'm thinking being mindfulness, I am thinking it has to be where you're floating on these really positive vibes,
Right.
Positive thoughts. So that's interesting that it could be like, hey, directly, I don't like her hairstyle,
Yeah,
and I would never wear it on me,
and that's a judgment one, and that's an okay one too, because that's happening. Mm-hmm. Another one might be, oof, the air conditioning's too cold in here. What you're feeling, what you're smelling, what you're seeing. I had this bad taste in my mouth. Too much coffee. I need to go rinse out my mouth. That's living in the present moment, tapping into your senses, and sometimes they're not so good. Sometimes you and I were talking early about a small fender bender. In the moment where you have a fender bender accident, you're like, oh no, my insurance rates are going to go up. I've got to jump out of the car. Is the person that I've tapped, are they okay? What are we doing? This isn't a happy moment, but you're
Correct.
Noticing everything about it. But it's after that fact sometimes that the gratitude can come in. Then you can, gather yourself after you do what needs to be done, after you notice what's really there in that present moment. And, at that time, you might say to yourself, thank goodness, no one was harmed, no one was hurt. This is a very small fender bender, and you're able to apply that gratitude tool. And soon you settle into that and you say, this was just a small obstacle that I've overcome this morning.
So basically, you think it kind of works in this way then? When you're in the moment, practicing mindfulness, and then the gratitude comes after it instead of before it?
In a challenge, I think yes. But if I take my yoga class that I have here at the JCC, right, and we're all sitting on our mats, one of the first things that we do is we gaze down to the ground and we say, this is us actually grounding ourselves and noticing what is here right now. And then we begin to slowly lift up the eyes and take in the space that we're in, shapes and colors and textures. I personally feel gratitude in those moments because I'm not hungry and I'm not too cold and I'm in, what I feel is a pretty safe place, and I'm tapping into the breath and noticing the inhalations and the exhalations. And so I am quite capable of gratitude in those moments, but not all moments,
I see. I
Yeah.
see. So, gratitude, is it one of those things, is there like a line in the sand, or is that something that can be practiced? How do you practice being grateful? Or is it just something that's just natural?
It's mostly not natural. And the reason why all of these things are called a practice is because we have to keep working at them and practicing with them. And so it so happens I brought my 3 of my journals today, and my journals really help me get good at just what you and I are talking about, just the way we practice pickleball over and over and over and over and over to get good at it.
Yes.
That's a side note. My journals really help me with gratitude. And there are ebbs and flows in life. There are times when seasons can bring about triggers or the memories of something that wasn't so good. There's times when life experiences are far from perfect. And so I'll use one of my journals, and I just buy, really inexpensive, and I mark them. Sometimes I put scrapbooks of things. But one particular practice that I like is a daily practice, and it happens before bed. Also helps us rest. Where maybe you list 6 things, but I got to tell you, those 6 things may be very small, and don't worry about that. In dark times, sometimes something like my own comfortable bed and soft pillow is a good place to start.
So is that, again, practicing mindfulness, or is that practicing being grateful that you have this nice soft
I love how you just kind of spot on, went right there. And I would say that when those 2 things intersected, you're right that you just intersected gratitude and mindfulness. Although my soft pillow and my comfortable bed, and I feel safe in the place where I'm going to lay my head down. Yay me,
Yes.
But I could have also been grateful. As I walk out of the JCC, I'm in love with this golden retriever that is here weekly.
Oh, yes.
And this doggy lifts my spirits. I adore this doggy. There's also a chocolatey brown. He's kind of a pointer dog. I might list that moment too, and that wouldn't be a mindful moment. That would be more of a recollection. But nevertheless, finding these 6, 7 things, but you make your own rubric. You can make and create any kind of practice that you want. One thing we started doing yesterday in my yoga class was talking about building new habits, and that slides right into gratitude.
And it slides right into 2024, where a lot of folks are looking at ways to, move in new directions.
So true.
Yeah. So if you had to sum up mindfulness, what would be the first, you said journaling, but give me maybe people don't like to do journaling. So what are some other tips that you would suggest?
Mindfulness
to practice
equals noticing. I'm just going to say it again because mindfulness simply equals noticing. Notice the taste on your tongue. Notice what you hear. Notice what you see. Tap into your breath. Notice if you're taking those little shallow breaths that signal kind of stress or an adrenaline rush. Simply notice everything. It's okay if it's not perfect. Noticing is really noticing where you are in each moment. Some could be uncomfortable, some might be incredibly gratifying, but just the practice of actually noticing, it keeps you out of deep planning all the time, working for the future and being in the future, right? Which may or may not come to pass.
Right.
Can sometimes induce a little bit of anxiety. And it
Absolutely.
keeps you from living way back here. And the holiday season, by the way, is a pretty big trigger for living way back here in holidays past. And so if you can let go of some of that and say, wait a minute, I'm right here. I'm right here at the J right now. I'm sitting in this beautiful studio with lights and a dear friend, and here's the ground and the space, and I feel pretty good right now. That is the best way to practice mindfulness. No tools required, nothing to buy.
So anyone, if you take some of the information that you just shared, anyone can really, without even thinking about it, really practice mindfulness. There isn't like A, B, C, D, E, you have to follow these 4 or 5 steps. It's
Right.
just more intuitive.
The biggest way to actually teach mindfulness is to teach what it's not. So I always use this. You get in your car, and maybe you're going to go to work, or you're going to come to the J and work out with us, which we really hope that you will. And you get there and you say, how did I get here? That's the biggest mindless practice.
What do you mean by how I got in my car?
I got in my car and I don't remember a street light. I don't remember passing the trees. I was in my head on autopilot, driving to the JCC. A mindful drive to the JCC would be me maybe noticing a holiday decoration, feeling my hands on the steering wheel, maybe noticing that I need to turn the air conditioning down a little bit. It's sending too much on my face. Then I'm practicing mindfulness. The other way that you can, I use this one all the time. It's like a favorite, and everybody goes, of a mindless practice. Eating in front of the television, particularly like Super Bowl that's coming up, that's a real practice that is not mindful. Your head is somewhere else, and we're eating and we're not thinking about anything. So mindfulness is simply the art of really noticing what's going on with you and around you, living in the present moment rather than the future or what you've already lived.
So, do you think though that if a person has like a pretty directed daily path, okay, like let's say my plan is I get in my car, I drive to the J, I go take your yoga class, I say hello to my friends. Okay, so that's pretty much something that's planned out. Those 4 things are done without thinking. So how does that differentiate from just observing trees and things while you're driving, or focusing on something different when you get into that pattern of what to do every day?
Yeah, and so I think what you're kind of referring to is that practice of autopilot.
Yes, exactly.
We get really good at it. I have to tell you, I'm such a creature of habit. A creature of habit. The problem with that is that if we just go about our business in this autopilot, I'm looking at you, and I've done this before. I've walked past your office and I'm like, hi, Terry. And you can tell I'm not really engaged. I'm just doing a pleasantry, and I'm walking down, and you know what I'm really thinking about? Which thing am I going to teach in my class this morning? I missed my moment with you when I did that. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be mindful all the time, but I want to catch myself in those practices, because here's the big because.
Okay.
And it's
drum roll. Drum roll.
If you always live, or if you mostly live, everything's not that extreme, but if you mostly live in the future, making your plans, as I am apt to do, I'm an over planner, or you live way back in the past, studying what happened and what your feelings were at that time, you miss your moments that are today. When you miss your moments that are today, 10 years goes by just like that. You didn't live them.
Yes, and when you miss those moments, that moment may never be an opportunity again.
That's right.
So that really makes a lot of sense.
And listen, and I don't mean to interrupt you, it may not be a happy moment. And we have to understand that part of being mindful is seeing things for what they really are. A friend might come up to you and say, I've had a bad experience. I want to tell you about it for a moment. And that's not a happy moment, but you're going to be there in that present moment, using your mindfulness ears and really taking in what the person says. And day by day, your life has these experiences that you're very currently and in the moment living, and life is just richer for really living it with intentionality.
I love that. I really enjoy and appreciate the fact that you are mentioning that mindfulness is not always just roses, a bed
That's
of
right.
roses, that it's just really a happy moment all the time. I think that is something, a really big takeaway for all of us to learn today, that, other types of negative things that come into your life are part of that, make up that focus on being mindful about that particular thing.
It's like you read me, and so that's a segue for me to come into saying we know that we are living in an extraordinarily difficult time globally.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
Yes.
matter if you're Jewish or if you're Christian or if you're not practicing any religion. The world is a complicated, difficult place in this moment, and this is definitely a time that I'm working my hardest at being grounded in gratitude. Otherwise, it's hard to take those step forward when we feel that we are somewhat out of control, or we are grieving, or whatever the situation is, and so I try really hard, and this is not an easy practice, to still write in my journal at night, what are the 10 things that I'm grateful for? More and more and more and more. I find myself grateful for, everything from the country I live in to the safe place I lie down my head at night. In fact, I would say that this boosts your gratitude practice, because things that you walked by a year ago, you don't walk by today. You say to yourself, look, I walk in my beautiful neighborhood with my dog on a leash. Gratitude.
Yes, that makes so much sense. And so I hope that all of us will, have a new vision when we are just going about our day to day, and to look at things quite differently and take it all in.
Right.
I think also that also would reflect mental health, as far as whether it's negative or positive. If you discuss it, even though it may be negative, it's gonna allow you to boost your mental health, because at least you're not like keeping it inside
The release.
and you're releasing it.
Yes.
Exactly. So by practicing mindfulness and being grateful and learning the difference between the two, I think is also for a lot of people out there that, especially this time of year, like you mentioned, mental health
Yes.
is a big depression is big the month of December.
Well,
it's one of the top illnesses.
The marketing industry does a fabulous job, but unfortunately in their fabulous job, they paint us a picture that many of us cannot live up to. Many of us do not look like a screenshot in that perfect television commercial with the perfect family and the perfect trimmings and the perfect food and the time to do it. We're all human beings and life varies. But the one thing that I do want to also tap into for you and me, which we do, is, you're right. Can I tell you, Terry, this bummer thing is going on for me. Can I confide in you, my friend? And you've always received me. And this is true. This is not true. This is this is my friend who is here for me for all of those things. But the other thing we do together is we exercise. And that's a physical release that also is necessary. And, if I'm watching a lot of the news broadcasts lately, I might find that my body is in this kind of pose. And the more I stay in this kind of pose, this cycle happens where it's very difficult to feel gratitude.
Everything's inward.
Everything is, I love how you said that. And so, I want to either go to Terry's class or yoga, or the pool. We have such beautiful aquatics now, but you've got to open back up the body and really free the heart space, pull the shoulders out of the ears, and you just do feel physically better afterwards. It's an easier place to find gratitude.
Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense, and I love the way that you just described that. It's perfect. So I hope everybody is really taking all of this in. And just to kind of close it down, what else can you tell us? Anything else that you can tell us about, gratitude, mindfulness? Is there any other takeaways that we need?
I think
to
just
kick into 2024.
just to remember that we're all in this together. And though sometimes, we want to just deal with whatever we are thinking or feeling or noticing all by ourselves, the thing that I talk about in classes here is I love that the Jewish Community Center is a community center. That means it's a place to come gather, whether you want to have lunch with someone or whether you want to come pet one of these dogs or find a class or review a book or come see a film or any of those things. But as we approach 2024, it's such a good time to make a connection. Connections almost always make us feel better. Take those small steps to make a connection. Be welcomed into a class or this kind of an environment. Get away from the televisions, pick up a journal, write down just a couple things. Maybe you're having a practice of what you eat, and you're listing that and what you feel gratitude for. Or maybe you walked around the block and you want to list your physical activities. Any and all of these kinds of practices. I didn't even add meditation, which is the best medicine in the whole wide world, just sitting in stillness. I don't often do it by myself too much. I'd rather meditate in a group. It makes me feel good and connected, and I appreciate the energy. But any practice as you head into 2024, whatever practice you make up, it's a good start.
I agree with you. I love that you mentioned the whole group element. There's strength in numbers, and I think that kind of just ties in with like connection, camaraderie, and what we are here at the J, a community. So I think on that note, anything else you want to share?
I just want to tell you, looking into this face, Terry Ahrens has been a connection for me for about 12 years now. I asked and asked and asked for an interview and an audition, and it was life-changing for me because this place where we're sitting right now is my second home, and I found so much joy here from moving out of town. So I always think the proof's in the pudding, and I'm somebody who moved here, and this is easily my second home where I practice all of these things that Terry and I are talking to you about today. Come play with us at the J.
Yes, please do. And on that note, viewers at home, remember, when you wake up, get wealthy and healthy. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you next time.